Hi, my name is Nancy Hillmer. I've been an occupational therapist at Boulder Community Health in Boulder, Colorado for over 35 years. For more than a decade, I've specialized in Parkinson's disease. I've worked with hundreds of people with Parkinson's in all different settings. Home care, my favorite. Outpatient rehab, community exercise groups, my other favorite. Week-long power retreats with Dr. Becky Farley, outdoor activities, and as a personal trainer helping people to set up exercise programs in their homes. I've been invited by the Phinney Foundation to talk to you about how OTs might work with you to prevent functional decline. You see, we want to keep you safe while you stay actively involved in your life and your relationships. So what is an occupational therapist? Well, OTs are a pretty creative group of medical professionals. We practice in all kinds of settings. We have a lot of overlapping skills with physical therapists and speech therapists. The word that really defines us, though, is the word function. You see, our job, no matter who we're working with or in what setting we find ourselves, is always the same. We help people to be as safe and independent as possible, doing whatever they need to or want to do. So, how do OTs work with Parkinson's disease? Well, the process is pretty straightforward, really. You identify the problem, you come up with a plan, you see how it works, and then you change it if you need to. The creativity comes in the details. So let's start with identifying the specific problem. When I walk into a new client's home, I may notice dozens of issues that I'd like to address. Things just kind of pop out at me. But what we actually decide to work on depends on you. I'll tell you what I notice, but you have to tell me what's most important to you. And from that point on, really, no matter what I ask you to do, I should be able to explain how it relates back to your original goals. So next we develop a plan, and we have to look at what's causing the problem and what needs to change in order to fix it. There are four main factors that generally affect functioning from an OT standpoint. Number one, the person. That's you. So you have your physical, cognitive, and emotional strengths and limitations that you come into life with. You have your interests, your priorities, your passions, your work history, your relationships. You have Parkinson's symptoms that are starting to develop, some of which you may not even be aware of yet. You may have other conditions too, including ones that may be made worse by the Parkinsons. We consider all of those when we try to make you the best that you can be. So number two, we look at the method. That's how you do whatever it is you're trying to do. So just because you've always done things a certain way doesn't mean that that's the best way for you to do it now. OTs are trained to analyze activities down to the smallest detail. We carefully watch how you do things so that we can figure out what changes could be most helpful. The environment is number three. That's the setting in which you're working. So simple modifications in your surroundings can make a huge difference in the functional outcome. I recommend that you consult with an occupational therapist before buying any big piece of equipment, before making any major changes to your home, or before moving to a new setting. Many times what I find is that people's homes are much more easily adapted than they thought they would be. So a few modifications might just save you a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of heartache that would come with an unnecessary move. We as occupational therapists are very motivated to keep you in your own home if that's what you want. All right, the fourth category, the fourth factor is the assistance required. That's the type and amount of help that you might need to perform any given task. So, do you need verbal cueing? Do you need targets? Do you need demonstration? If it's a demonstration, is it better to have it straight in front of you or side by side? Do you need physical assistance? Do you need that assistance sometimes? All the time? Would you be better off without any help at all? For example, getting dressed is a good way to go through a lot of range of motion and work on your flexibility and strength, and it could be robbing a person of that potential for exercise if you take that away from them when they're perfectly capable of doing it. Is there any special training involved to prevent injury to either you or your partner? What I've seen a lot, this is kind of an example of that, is that a care partner with all good intentions will see that their person with Parkinson's is struggling to get out of the chair, and so they'll reach over, grab their arms and pull them up. That might work a time or two, but really you're not teaching them anything about the proper way to get out of a chair, which is to push forward, and you're also risking injury to them by pulling their shoulders. Over time that could cause injury. Over time it could cause injury to you. So then we take a look at our results. Did our action result in what function we wanted to maintain? So let's say, for example, that you want to get safely up and down your stairs, and so you install a railing. Great. Problem solved, right? Not necessarily. Maybe, even though you have that railing there, you forget to use it because your hand doesn't automatically reach for things anymore. Or maybe you do reach for it, but as you go up and down the stairs, your feet are progressing, but your arm is lagging behind you. Maybe your foot placement is the problem, and so you get your foot solidly on that first step, but the next one maybe not as much, the next one not very much at all, and pretty soon you're very precariously perched on that step with just your toes. Maybe you're not very well balanced when you reach the top of the steps, and you actually need another grab bar out in front of you across the hall perhaps, so that you can clear that stairwell, or a grab bar around the side so that you can go off to the side and be out of harm's way. Maybe you can't carry things and pay attention to your foot and hand placement all at the same time, so you need to find another way to get your laundry back up and down the stairs. Maybe you need a second railing because you do quite well using your right hand to go up the stairs, but when you turn around, the railing is on your left side, and your left side is not as good at, or you're not as aware of your left side as you are of your right. So maybe you're in the habit of leaving things on the steps that could cause a slipping hazard. It really doesn't take much. A pencil, a piece of paper are easy to slip on. Maybe you have trouble seeing the edge of the steps because of some visual issues that you have. And so you really have to look at the lighting, or perhaps creating more of a contrast on that step with a piece of tape. Or maybe your partner likes to talk to you when you're going up and down the steps, and you need all of your concentrated effort to get your hands and your feet in the right place. You also might want to think about the top of that stairwell. When you're walking past it, do you need to block it off so that it doesn't pose a hazard of falling down? Finally, we modify the plan. If we didn't get it just right the first time, There are always, in my way of thinking, at least 25 ways to solve every problem. So don't stop trying. So I'd like to wrap things up by going over a few key points. First, every person with Parkinson's disease experiences a different set of symptoms. Every home is different. Every care partner is different, both in their capabilities and also in their relationship to the person with Parkinson's. We know that Parkinson's disease is a progressive condition. So what you do now is very important. You have the most ability to learn and adapt yourself and your methods right now. It's so much harder if you try to change a bad habit later when you really need to than to develop a new one now. I would also encourage you to plan to return to your occupational therapist whenever you experience a change in your functioning. And so that brings me to my last key point, and that is that experience does matter when you're choosing a therapist, occupational therapist or otherwise. You want to try to find one that's worked with lots of people with Parkinson's in all different stages. They're going to have a much greater knowledge of the strategies, the adaptations, and the adaptive equipment that's specific to Parkinson's. They're going to know the tendencies of Parkinson's, so they're going to know what they're trying to prevent in the future. They're going to be able to, with the newly diagnosed, identify those subtle but important changes that perhaps even the person with Parkinson's is not yet aware of. So to get in to see an occupational therapist, you would need a doctor's prescription. Medicare and most insurance companies do cover occupational therapy. And in fact, home care is a free service if you do meet the homebound criteria. So another problem that people have is they find that they don't have a lot of OTs to choose from in their area, and perhaps their therapist does not have experience in Parkinson's. So what I would suggest in that situation is that you ask them to take a course, maybe a course in PWR, Parkinson's Wellness Recovery, LSVT Big, Allied Team Training for Parkinson's. Those are all really good courses to help give you the basic idea of what you're trying to work with. Your therapist may also want to find a mentor, another occupational therapist who has had experience and can answer questions, troubleshoot, problem solve, just another person to bounce ideas off of. It doesn't necessarily have to be another occupational therapist either. I find that working on a team with a physical therapist, a speech therapist, a social worker, and a nurse really gives me a much broader sense of what's going on, a bigger picture, and it's just a much richer way to learn about Parkinson's. If you found this presentation helpful, I hope that you'll watch the next video that we've put together. It's called The 4 Factors Affecting Function. It's a lot of F words there. Sorry about that. It'll go into more detail about the specific strategies and methods that occupational therapists might use to increase your safety and your functional independence. Thank you.